Hello friends, I'm back again with yet another episode of L&D Snippets. In the last episode, we talked about the learning cycle or the learning process. We discussed the 4 steps involved in the learning process. In this episode, we are going to talk about the prerequisites for the learning process. While the learning process is extremely important for learning to take place, the prerequisites are important for the learner to get ready to start the learning process. The prerequisites are important because it prepares the learner to get ready to involve himself or herself in the learning process. So in this episode, we are going to discuss the prerequisites in detail. There are 5 prerequisites for the learning process. For the ease of remembering, I have codified them as A, B, C, D, E. In the list of prerequisites, we saw A stands for attitude, B stands for belief, C stands for curiosity, D stands for discipline, and E stands for engrossed attention. Now let's look at each one of them. Let's begin with attitude. Why is attitude such an important prerequisite for the learning process? Why is it so critical? Well, many of us approach learning with an I know it all attitude. That's a dangerous thing. If one approaches learning with an I know it all attitude, one can never become a good learner or an effective learner. The highly admired spiritual guide Sri Thakur Chandra has said something very profound in this regard. He says, no other passion creates such a hindrance to knowledge as does conceit of knowledge. This is such a hard-hitting, compelling statement about the attitude towards learning. Conceit of knowledge or the pride of knowledge is the biggest hindrance or biggest obstacle for learning. When Satya Nadella took over as the CEO of Microsoft, he decided to drive an I learn it all culture in the organization as opposed to an I know it all culture. And that drive or that mission brought about a tremendous transformation in his organization. All great men and women never consider themselves to be masters, teachers, guides, or experts. They always consider themselves to be students in the journey of life. And that's the right attitude towards learning. Student in the journey of life. Well, what's the practical lesson? What's the practical approach towards building the right attitude towards learning? The practical approach would be to begin by doing a self-assessment, by doing an assessment of your attitude. You can do that by asking yourself a few questions. The questions can be, what is my attitude towards learning? How do I approach learning? Do I approach learning with pride or do I approach learning with humility? Do I respect my trainers, teachers, mentors, or am I indifferent to them? Do I respect my trainers and teachers and mentors for what they know? Or do I underestimate them, mock at them for what they don't know? Answers to these questions would determine your attitude towards learning. Doing a self-assessment and achieving self-awareness is the fundamental first step towards building the right attitude towards learning. The second prerequisite is belief. One has to believe that one can learn. The learner has to believe that he or she can learn. Without that firm belief, confidence, or conviction, it's almost impossible to learn. But many people lack the conviction or the confidence. They lack the belief that they can learn. Why this happens? This could happen because of a number of reasons. One reason could be our experience in the past. If in the past we tried to learn something and we did not succeed, we might just develop the notion that we are not going to be able to learn it. And if you have also seen our colleagues, our friends, our batchmates in the school fail to do something, we also believe that this is a difficult subject to master. So that could be one of the reasons why we might lack belief that we may learn something. Another reason could be the social biases. For example, there is a bias prevalent in the society that girls are not good at STEM subjects. But that's not correct. Girls can actually be good as boys in STEM subjects. Now, if there are some girls who believe that they're not good at STEM subjects, they would never be able to excel in those subjects. So it's important that we understand our past experiences, we understand our personal and social biases, because these can really come in our way. These can really pull down our confidence. So now what's the practical approach? How does one deal with lack of belief or confidence? Well, I think the good way would be to look at your past, to look at your past experiences, and try to find out what past experiences might have influenced your belief system today or your confidence today. It'll also be good to recall your past successes. Recall instances where you have mastered difficult or complex subjects. I think that would definitely give you confidence, give you the belief that you can learn something which is equally complex or difficult. In spite of your best efforts, if you still cannot gather enough confidence or belief, then it may be advisable to consult a coach or a mentor or even a counselor. The next prerequisite is curiosity. Those of you who are parents to young children would know that your children ask you lots of questions. They almost ask questions all the time. It's because of their curiosity, their inquisitiveness to know more. But when they grow old, they lose their curiosity. And sometimes our education system kills their curiosity. Isn't that unfortunate? But curiosity is a fundamental trait which is essential for learning, is an essential prerequisite for learning. Now, how do we bring that curiosity back in us, in learners, in children and adults alike? Well, that childlike curiosity is absolutely important. What's the practical approach about it? How do we bring that curiosity back again? Well, there are a few ways we can do that. First of all, as adults, we need to stop judging people. We need to stop judging everything, and we need to understand. We should seek to understand rather than judge. The moment we become judgmental, learning stops. Curiosity dies down. The moment you seek to understand, curiosity gets ignited. The second thing that we can do is to spend time with curious people. If you spend more time with people who are judgmental, we would tend to become more judgmental. But if you spend time with people who are more curious, we would also become more curious. That's bound to happen. Another thing that you can do is to try and understand yourself. Understanding self is a powerful way to ignite curiosity. Asking questions to yourself: who I am, where I've come from, what is the mission of my life, what are my beliefs, what are my values, etc., will enhance your curiosity. The next prerequisite is discipline. We talked about attitude, belief, and curiosity, but they themselves are not adequate. They're good enough to make us enthusiastic, keen about learning, but we finally need to take action. We need to start and continue our learning activity. That's where discipline plays an important role. Many of us start learning activity with a lot of enthusiasm and energy, but we lose our way in the middle. We give up because sometimes it's our job, it's our other preoccupations, etc., eat into our learning time. So unless we pursue learning with rigor and discipline, we are never going to become successful. So we need to religiously set aside time for learning every day. every single day. That discipline, that continuity is absolutely important. That consistency is very, very, very essential. So we'll have to keep in mind that we may have to sacrifice personal time. We may have to sacrifice our recreation time. We may have to sacrifice some other preoccupations. But we need to make sure that once we're committed to begin our learning activity, we must stay disciplined about it. And as you saw in the previous episode, learning is not just about reading a book or listening to a podcast or watching a video or just attending a class. Learning is about application. We saw that we need to reflect, we need to create new hypotheses and concepts, and we need to do active testing of the concepts and hypotheses, etc., that we create. So this calls for effort. This calls for application. We need to make sure that we take time out for application. We take time out for reflection and creation. This is absolutely important. So discipline is a very practical, pragmatic prerequisite for learning process. The last but not the least is engrossed attention. Let me take you back to the last episode for a moment. In the last episode, we talked about the learning process, and we saw how our brain gathers information from the external environment through our sense organs and reflects on the information that it gathers. Now, the question I'm going to ask you is, can our brain gather information if our sense organs are not attentive and alert? So attention is absolutely important. If the sense organs are not attentive, there are so many things that we could just miss out on. There could be so many learning opportunities that we could just miss out on because our senses are not active. They're not attentive and alert. So, focused, concentrated attention is absolutely important. Engrossed attention also means that we need undivided attention. And that means that we cannot do multitasking while learning. Our brain is not good at multitasking. And especially when you are trying to learn something and we are also doing something else at the same time, learning is never going to be effective. So we need that undivided attention. And our attention span is also very short. Research has found out that people cannot pay attention to something for more than 7 minutes. So human beings actually struggle with attention. So this is absolutely important. Engrossed attention is an absolutely important prerequisite for the learning process. So what's the practical approach? How do you really develop attention? Well, meditation is a powerful way to improve our attention, our concentration, our focus, and mindfulness. So I would recommend practice meditation to improve your attention and focus. I'd also recommend set aside time every day where you are not actually doing anything else. So that will also make sure that you are not distracted. Find a place in your home or maybe at the workplace or maybe a library where you are unlikely to have too many distractions. And I would also advise that take breaks in between your learning activity. Whenever you feel your brain is getting tired, you are feeling a little exhausted, your brain is feeling drained out, take a break, take a walk, and come back and resume your learning activity with renewed enthusiasm and energy. So friends, engrossed attention is an absolutely important prerequisite for the learning process. Today we talked about the 5 prerequisites for the learning process. They are attitude, belief, curiosity, discipline, and engrossed attention. These are absolutely critical for the learning process. If you want to become an avid, ardent learner, you need to make sure that you put these 5 prerequisites in place before you embark on your learning journey. And if you're an L&D practitioner or a trainer or a teacher or a facilitator, you need to think about how and what you can do to help your learners meet these prerequisites. This is time for all of us to think. And this is what I have for you today. And I would see you soon and request you to subscribe to this channel and like this video if you found this video useful. Thank you.